freedom and justice.
Welcome to Payne in Politics. We're joined today by our mayors from Beaumont and Port Arthur, Mayor Bartie and Mayor Ames, and I am so excited to have them here. As you know, this is not an opportunity for us to endorse any particular candidate or any party. This is an opportunity for us to learn a little bit more about our elected and selected officials here. So I want to welcome you.
Thank you.
Look forward to, appreciate you guys being here. And
Thank you.
why don't we just jump right in and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background and what makes you the mayor of Beaumont and Port Arthur.
Okay. Want me to go first?
You more. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm Becky Ames, and I'm the mayor of Beaumont. And I've been the mayor since 2007, and I was an at-large council member from 1994 until 2007. So it's been about 27 years. My background, I went to A&M, and Hardin-Jefferson High School, so I went to school here. But I have been in the service industry. I've had three professional careers, I guess, and all of them pretty long-term, anywhere from 7 to 16 years each. And that is, and I say service because customer service is important to me. It's important to me for our constituents as well. Started in the hotel industry and went on to the assisted living for senior citizens industry and then hospitals.
Awesome.
So I feel like that's all people-related businesses, and that's what I tend to go toward, and of course mayor is too.
Awesome. Judge Bartie?
Excuse me. Well, I'm Thurman Bartie, mayor of Port Arthur, Texas, for 8 months. And excuse my throat, just while Mayor Ames was talking, I started getting this tickling. But I've been the mayor for 8 months in the city of Port Arthur. I actually was elected in a runoff. I would say in June. I began serving, I think it was July 3rd of 2019. Unlike Mayor Ames, I didn't have a lot of experience in municipal government, but just besides being a citizen of the great city of Port Arthur. But I do have a undergraduate degree from Lamar University in political science. So I had just a little nature of it and understanding. And I've taught, I did teach American government in the high school over in Port Arthur.
Let's kind of start with your positions itself. We talk about mayors, but what does a mayor do?
Well, you know, different cities are different depending on their charter, and a lot of states are different. Texas, for the most part, is a city manager form of government. There are a few cities that aren't, that are what they call a strong mayor. Doesn't mean we're strong. It's just called a strong mayor. Houston is one. But for the most part, Texas cities are city manager form of governments. And so that means that the city manager that the council hires runs the city on a day-to-day basis, and most of the people through department heads work for him. And then, of course, there's the legal department and the city clerk that work for us as well, but from the standpoint of the operations of the city, that would fall under the city manager. The mayor is the chief executive officer in our city, of the city, and we are basically the policy makers.
Awesome. Well, let me ask you, Mayor Bartie, what about Port Arthur? Do you have a city manager as well, and is it similar run like Beaumont?
Yes, very, very similar to what Mayor Ames has already described. We have a manager form of government. As she said, there's, I think, 3 or 4 cities in Texas that really has a strong mayor. In that, the role of the mayor, as I am becoming familiar with, even as I speak, you are the face of the city, so to speak. The city manager, on the other hand, is the administrator. In our sense, our city manager, Mr. Ron Burton, who is a fine gentleman, who actually began his tenure as city manager in the interim role probably about 4 weeks after I had been sworn in as mayor.
How long does one serve as mayor in the city of Port Arthur?
Okay, in Port Arthur, I would never have, as far as the charter is now, the luxury that Mayor Ames has.
Well, I don't know if I call it a luxury.
Because you can only serve 2 2 3-year terms as far as the charter is written now, and the charter that's in place right now. I would serve this first term, which would be 3 years, and if I'm fortunate enough and think that I'm relevant and the citizens would feel that I should remain, then I could serve another term. So it would be a total of 6 years the way the charter is now.
And that is not by a particular party. You don't run as a Republican or as a Democrat.
It's totally nonpartisan. It is not, Democrat, Republican, Independent, or Federalist, or anything, or Whig, or none of that. Okay.
Okay.
You're going to be just an individual who's made a declaration that you want to serve the community.
Well, Mayor Ames, and that's a little different in Beaumont.
It is. And that's per the charter. As Mayor Bartie said, our charter is 2-year terms. So you win and you're just about running again right after. It's very quick. And I believe that that's probably why it was structured the way that we don't have term limits, is because we have 2-year terms. So if you do something that the citizens don't like, they don't have to wait very long to vote you out if that's what they want to do.
We've talked about the position. I really want to focus on the purpose. When I see city council meetings, when the viewers see city council meetings, you guys seem to be running the meeting. Can you tell us a little bit about, let's start with Beaumont, the structure of that city council meeting or that city council?
It's very clear also in the charter that as the chief executive officer, in our charter anyway, that I am in charge of the meetings and make the rules that we put in place. I actually recently came up with some additional rules for council because I felt like we needed a little more structure. We never had in the past, but sometimes things change, and you do. And so we did put in place some, it's not Robert's Rules of Order, but it's kind of in line with that in some ways, about how you conduct yourself to each other, to the people in the audience, how you make a motion. We used to discuss things first and then make a motion. We've changed it to where now there has to be a motion and a second before any discussion is done, and things like that. We did have the right to do that. I put something together, brought it to the council, and they accepted it with very minimal change.
And how many council members do we have in Jefferson County?
Counting the mayor in Beaumont,
Yes.
counting me, 7. We have 2 at-large members, which means they represent the entire city of Beaumont. That's what I served in from 94 to 07 when I ran for mayor, was at-large, so that didn't change for me because I'm still at-large. So we have 2 of those, and then we have 4 different wards, which is different sections of the city, and we have ward council members that serve those wards.
Well, Mel Bartie, let me ask you that because as well, do you have a similar structure like that in Beaumont?
Yeah, it's very similar to the city of Beaumont. We, as far as the number of persons on the council, it's actually 7. The mayor, myself, and then I have 2 at-large seats or council persons, and then there are 4 districts. The city is divided into 4 districts.
Basically the same.
Yeah, and like you say, the overlap, it is basically the same. What you do have is, as far as the meeting, the mayor is sort of like you said, the chief executive. So being the chief executive officer, you are the person who conducts the meetings. And the meetings we actually have adopted Robert's Rules of Order as being the parliamentary procedures that would be actually executed for our council meetings.
And when do you meet?
Okay, we meet on Tuesdays unless it's a called meeting. We have on the first Tuesday of the month is a morning meeting, which begins at 8:30. On the 3rd Tuesday, I believe it is, of the month, that meeting is an evening meeting, an afternoon. Well, it begins the afternoon at 3:30 or 4, but it runs into the evening because sometimes if there's a public hearing or something of that nature, then we'll be after 5 or 6.
As a citizen of Port Arthur, and if I wanted to bring something to your meeting or to the attention to the city, either council members, how would I, as a resident of Port Arthur, be able to get on your agenda?
Okay, well, first, we have a city secretary, and you would contact the city secretary's office. There is a form that you fill out, or if they will fill it for you. It asks certain questions as to what it is you want to discuss, what the topic is, no matter, as long as it's not some topic that I think would be totally condescending to public perception, so to speak, then you are allowed to discuss it.
In Beaumont, when do you meet,
Okay.
and how is your meeting performed differently than what's done in Port Arthur?
We meet every Tuesday at 1:30, and then once a quarter we now have an evening meeting. We had an evening meeting last night, and we post that in advance so people know. But I always say our meetings are recorded, of course, and anyone can go at any time to our website and look at any meeting in the past, present. Like today, if we had a meeting 5 weeks ago that you wanted to go online to our city website, you could do that and see everything that happened. And then, of course, you click a button, and if you have something to say about it, you can send it just to me. You can send it to all the council members. So there's a lot of accessibility there, even if you're not at the meeting. You still have a voice.
Well, now let me ask. We've had 200-year floods in the last 5 years, actually. What is the role of the mayor in a situation like that?
It's major. In the city of Beaumont, the charter states that this mayor is the emergency management director. So basically the head person in charge of the emergency management department at that time. In Beaumont, I work very closely when we do have to stand up our emergency operations center for whatever reason, closely with the city manager, the city attorney, all the department heads are there and help. But I also appoint an emergency management coordinator. His name is Tim Oknichek. He's police, SWAT. He's very good at what he does. I've had my share because of the time I've been on. I kid with some of the past mayors. Some of them didn't have any, and I've had so many. But I mean, the first year I was elected was Ike, and then we've gone through what we've gone through recently. And the mayor has to be in the city. You cannot leave. I mean, if I was in Egypt, I would have to come back. I basically sleep even in the emergency operations center, like with Imelda, this last one that we had that just came on us like so quickly on that Wednesday evening. Immediately when all this started, I went to the EOC and I didn't leave for several days. And that's what's supposed to happen.
Well, let me ask you something, Mayor Bartie, because when the last storm came through, you became very visible in social media and internet and things of that nature, communicating with the citizens of Port Arthur. Did you feel that was part of your purpose and responsibility as mayor? Is that something in the charter, or is that something you did?
No, it's something you just do.
my experience has been very unique in that I was sworn in on, I think, the 3rd of July. By July 5th or 6th, we had a storm that was brewing that was coming from Alabama way somewhere in the Gulf, which the very first meeting I had after being sworn in was an emergency management meeting. It was like I was sworn in at 9 or 10 that morning. At 2:30 that afternoon, I had a meeting about emergency management, and that had been in place for about a week because of what I knew was very important in our region. You know, you've got to have yourself surrounded by knowledgeable individuals because you are the mayor, and the Texas, I would say, I call it the Texas Constitution, but it's by law. It's by articles, I believe, in the Constitution of Texas.
Texas law.
Yeah, Texas law, and ordinances in the city that the mayor becomes the person who makes the calls. But you make these decisions based upon information that you've received from the experts whom you trust. And in each community, we have our emergency management coordinators. We have one in Port Arthur. She has one in Beaumont. We have one in Nederland, Port Neches. We have one for the county. Okay. Now, the unique thing is that did not occur, but it gave me a workout. and the workout was being connected to the National Weather Service, being sure how we listen to what they are suggesting. They're not just telling you or making you do something, but they're giving you suggestions based upon their predictions. So we know we've done that. Now the uniqueness was we fast forward to Imelda. And that was when I was really visible, but I was visible for several reasons because Port Arthur had been inundated with Harvey. And the citizens had a feeling that the leadership at the time did not respond or did not disseminate information to them in a timely manner. Well, we had never had an event like Harvey, so no one really knew what to do. But because of that, I wanted to be sure that the citizens were calm enough and understanding enough to know that we were doing everything humanly possible, to be sure that we could protect life, property, to the best of our abilities. We have, in effect, a system in place with the county judge, with the mayors of all of the cities, that I believe is most effective, as Mayor Ames just said. If an evacuation has to be called and movement has to be north in a northerly fashion, that the mayors in the cities coordinate so that certain population is moved at different times, so everybody's not moving at the exact same time. And those are several things. But as far as the workouts, I've had 3 experiences in 8 months that still keeps me far away from an expert, but to be cognizant of how I know that I need to have the right individuals in place to be sure that our city is protected, and I know Mayor Ames feels the same.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask, sounds like we're not necessarily a mayor-strong government unless we have emergency. And at that point, you guys have to
Take
step
over.
up and
They're in
take
charge,
control.
right.
Yeah.
Let me shift a little bit because I know one of the areas that's coming up that I think has significant impact in Southeast Texas is the census, and making sure that we have an accurate count of the census count in your city in Port Arthur as well as in Beaumont. What are you doing right now in Port Arthur to make sure that we have an accurate census count?
Well, we have complete count committee in place in Port Arthur. Dr. Thigpen is our coordinator for the city of Port Arthur. I'm more than sure you all have an individual here. He and the complete count committee, along with Census Bureau staff, are putting together programs that keeps the population informed on, I believe it's going to be March 12th. Is the initial date that they can begin going online. We were talking earlier, being able to register, do their census information online, or I think the door knocking, it will even be that, but door knocking may not be until April 1st. I'm not sure how that's going to work. But during that interim, you can actually be counted. The importance of your being counted is what I believe is being disseminated in the population right now. And that is so important. We've talked about it here, but the $1,600 that we will lose in this region in Jefferson County, so to speak, per individual who is not counted.
Tell us how does that affect our representation?
Well, based on the census is how we received our representation of our senators, our state representatives, all the way to the federal government. I mean, I can't speak to how important that it is. We used to have more than we do now, because we did grow in the last census. Beaumont grew a little bit, maybe about 5,000-6,000 people, but there were some past years, like 10-15 years ago, that we didn't, and we lost some of that representation. And everyone needs to be counted. I mean,
Right.
and no one should be afraid that I've heard, well, I could lose my benefits. If they're not a citizen, it doesn't matter. They need to be counted. If it's someone who chooses to be homeless and they don't have a house, we need to count them.
Right.
It's not just people who live in a household. A lot of people think that. That's not what it is. It is absolutely everyone.
Well, let me kind of shift to the last area, which deals really with power of the mayor. I know you guys control the meeting, but you also operate under some kind of budget. What is the budget that you operate under in City of Port Arthur?
160 million, and I have it on my desk. I can't recall the total numbers. And from there up to about maybe almost 200 million. But that budget is prepared by our finance director under the tutelage of the city manager. It's actually accepted by the city council. That's the way we do it. Each department, has its amounts, and we are normally in a balanced budget type situation.
Well, let me ask you the same question. What is the budget for the City of Beaumont that you
It's
oversee?
$289 million. It's, I would say, being a tenured council member, that finance in a city or a municipality is probably one of the most difficult things to learn for a new representative, whether it be mayor or a council member, because it is so different. A lot of us, I come from business, obviously. Coming from business, it is so different. Everything's called a different thing. The way you do things are totally different. So it's very difficult to learn it. And if you get it in the second year, you'll be doing good because it's hard. But basically, it is the same structure in that the CFO with their staff put together the budget, bring it to the council for approval. And I think one thing that's important for people to know that they may not know, some may, but there are different types of funds. Yeah. And you can't just it's not like it goes in one big pot and you can do whatever you want with it.
One of the things I know you guys are doing in Port Arthur, you're trying to bring businesses and entities into the area, and we hear this term used a lot, tax abatements. And that's not always looked at as a positive when you hear the terms tax abatements, especially from people like me who pay taxes. You say, well, why are they getting free taxes and why am I not getting free taxes? How do you deal with that as a mayor?
That's a simple term. I don't use that term.
Okay.
Well, from seasons past, I found out that tax abatement, that term is not anything that a citizen really wants to hear when it is in correlation to an industrial neighbor or some big business entity. Now, there are now terms that are used, tax incentives, so to speak. There are you
Create so many
incentivize,
jobs, yes.
right? You incentivize an industry that comes in with an incentive. If they hire an X number of persons that are part of that community, then they would be given a tax credit, so to speak.
Well, we certainly appreciate your service. I wouldn't necessarily call it just work because obviously you have jobs outside of being a mayor, but we appreciate your service to the community.
Thank you so
and
much.
Thank you for, again, being a part of Payne in Politics. We look forward to visiting with some other elected and selected officials.